Today I'm going to be talking about how to improve 3D replay. But before I start criticizing it, I want to first thank Brendan Green and the dev team who worked on it. I didn't think in a million years we would ever see a theater type mode in PUBG. Some of you new viewers might not know, but my channel has tons of edits and hundreds and thousands of hours on those games. And most of my time was actually in theater mode trying to make cool cinematics. That being said, after hopping into PUBG 3D replay, I see a lot of things that can be improved. So now I've made a list of the most important to least important things that I think can improve. And as we get to the bottom, they're going to be more of just wish list things that I think would be cool if we just had them implemented in. So let's get started on the list. The first and second are probably just as important as each other, but number one is just more of a fast fix for number two. So the first one is having a slider that you get to choose how slow the camera moves in free camera mode. As of right now, the left control button allows the camera to slow, but it's just not slow enough. If you are trying to capture a character running in slow motion, it is very hard because the camera is moving much faster than the character running or doing any action. As of right now, the only way to make smooth cinematics is a controller. Now for at least a PlayStation 4 controller, there is no sensitivity on the left joystick for the camera speed, so it's only one speed. I don't know if they can implement something in for that, and I don't know if the Xbox One controller is different from the PlayStation controller, just because PUBG is working with Xbox, so I'm not very sure about that. Now number two, I can't express how important this would be for 3D replay and how much more better movies and cinematics we would get out of it, but bringing the cinematic tool dolly camera into 3D replay. Now if you do not know what that is, you're able to place a camera in one spot and then move forward in the timeline and place another camera and allow the cameras to move fluidly. Most of the older Call of Duties have this feature, and with all my other Call of Duty edits, you wouldn't be able to get some of the scenes you would if you were just controlling it by freehand. Also with the dolly camera, all of your shots will be much more smoother and professional looking. So this is by far, I would say, the most important thing out of everything so far. Now for our third one, being able to send your 3D replay save files to other people. Now I would say I'm pretty decent at the game. But I wouldn't say I'm a Shroud or any professional player. That being said, a lot of the creative people want to use other people's clips and make cinematic montages with them. Now for instance, I was given the opportunity to work with a starting up esports PUBG team, and they've given me clips to use, but I would love to use their actual gameplay so I can get the cinematics instead of trying to reenact them later on and trying to copy the same movements they had to get cinematic scenes. Now getting to the fourth one, being able to take off the top spectate text when you're spectating yourself, and the player kills at the bottom left corner. Now the reason for this is most people don't like to play with the graphics all the way up on Ultra because they're at a very bad disadvantage as of right now because your FPS is lower than theirs if they're playing on low. So me for instance, I like to play on low and I like to go into the 3D replay, turn it back up to Ultra and be able to capture that footage again in Ultra later on. Now including with number four, there's a few glitches that would like to be fixed also when you're spectating yourself. Now another glitch I see is when you reload your gun, for some reason your character will shoot. One time, I'm not sure why it does that, but that's one thing I see happening a lot more. Another one is when you reload, one of your clips gets stuck to the right hand of your gun. For what reason, I do not know why, but that's another one I'd like to be fixed. And lastly, just in general, make the spectate more accurate to the actual gameplay, because sometimes it will look like he's not shooting in the right place and a character goes down, it looks like you're not shooting him. Just being able to have it more accurate would be much better in the long run and just for everyone in general. Now number 5 is very small and it's not that hard to fix, but I think it would have a huge improvement on 3D replay. So number 5 is removing the gray barrier from the 1 kilometer camera limit. Now I realize why the camera can only be 1 kilometer long, because the map is so gigantic and it would take so much more memory to have the entire thing saved. So I understand that. But having the outside of that 1 kilometer grayed out makes it for bad cinematics, because if you're trying to get like a scenery of the sky or a high sky shot, you will always get gray in the background. For instance, this is one of the cinematics I used in my last edit, and you can see that the sky is completely grayed out. So my solution for this one would be completely remove the gray and just have a more visible barrier around the circle on the ground, so it just glows a little bit more on the ground, so they know that that's the limit for the 1 kilometer. And once you step out of the 1 kilometer with your camera, that's when it will turn gray and you will get that glitch effect that will tell you that you need to go back into the barrier. Now, number 6 is a solution for having to keep on bringing up the timeline, pressing the button J, I think is what it is. So my solution for not bringing up the timeline constantly is having a rewind button, just like you have a fast forwarding button, and also having a button where it jumps 10 to 30 seconds ahead and backwards, so you don't always have to bring up the timeline constantly, so it just makes it a little bit easier for everyone. Now, another one that I think would be great for the game that you really don't recognize it until you actually start using it. And number 7 is having the option to slow down the gameplay to 0.1 speed instead of 0.25. It makes a difference for fast actions that are happening in cinematics. For instance, someone jumping out of a car or a car scene, it would be much more cinematic and look much more better if we can have it in a more slower mode of 0.1 speed. Now, this is a glitch I've seen in some of the older Call of Duties, is when you're moving the camera close to the character and trying to get a rotation shot, character will look like it's stuttering, and it might give the illusion that there's frame drops when there really isn't. I will try to show an example. I don't know if I have one because I always cut those shots out, but when you get close to the character, there'll be more of like a small stutter. If you try to, you will definitely see it if you try it. Now, I don't know what the solution is for this. If you guys can figure out some way to change that. I'm always looking for the more professional shots and more enticing shots, so that's would be a great improvement to the 3D replay. Now, the last big thing I can think of as of right now is the glitch where you're jumping ahead in the timeline and your character is not completely loaded in. Sometimes it's just his body and his head and his legs, and his arms are not loaded in, or his guns are not loaded in. And sometimes it takes a very, very long time to load, or you just have to keep on going back and forward in the timeline eventually until it does load. I'm pretty sure that's just with optimization, but that's just another glitch I see that could be fixed. So now we're at the very bottom of the list. Now, these are just things that I think would be cool if we had them in it, and I don't mind if these implemented later on at any time. It would just be so awesome if we got these at some point in time. Now, one of them was surprisingly going to be field of view, which they've actually already added in at the beginning, and I'm very surprised that they did that. Most games don't do that, and I'm so thankful that is added in. It is a huge, huge help, more than you guys can ever think of. But one thing that coexists with field of view is depth of field. Now, I would love to have a depth of field in this game. It will make it look 10 times better than what it is now. My solution is it doesn't have to be a true depth. It just has to blur around the character and maybe have a slider of how much blur you want. We don't have to have a true depth. I don't know how much that would be on the engine. My solution would just have it blur around the character. Now, I'm thinking if you can blur around the character, another thing you can do is have a green screen. Now, green screens are pretty cool if you like to do effects in a third-party program like After Effects. I try to do different effects sometimes, and sometimes it comes out really cool. So I think that would be another cool thing. Now, the last two things that I think would be cool would be a weather changer. If you want to change the scenery, that would be really cool. I think if you wanted to change it to the sunset or the fog or the rain, and maybe when you implement other ones also, that would be really cool if you can have that in there. And another thing is having a sky rotation. So you being able to rotate the sun and the skybox. So if your character is having low lighting, you can just rotate the sun and he can have good lighting when you're trying to make a cinematic. But those are just small implemented things that I think would like work very well, but you never know. But if you made it to the end, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope one of the devs see this or one of the team members see